Give me that loud ass clap. It's an interesting look, like you're like a homeless person.
I'm glad we picked a topic that I have less opinions on, but let's go.
All right.
Because I think AI will come for radio hosts and podcast hosts before it comes for public speaking. The Republican Party will be as lost as the Democratic Party is right now.
When's the last time? I looked at my Google Street View yesterday. It's like 2 cars ago. When did they update that thing? You know, Kristin, first of all, nice coat.
Thanks.
It's chilly in the studio. It's an interesting look, like you're like a homeless person.
No,
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Right.
I mean, I'm not the most polished person you've ever met.
No.
I would between Cabbage Patch Kid and Garbage Pail Kid, I'm definitely the latter.
Were you a messy kid, like all hair all over the place and like dirty
Yeah.
hands? And,
Yeah. I would say I'm still a messy kid.
Tomboy?
Yes.
Really? Well, you're an
We've
athlete.
already talked about that. I played Little League,
Yeah.
and I had people call me Chris.
You played Little League when that still was kind of a big deal, right? Or,
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when I played Little League,
I mean, it wasn't very good. They put
When I
me in
played
like
Little League?
left field.
ain't no girls in Little League when I was
Yeah,
playing.
that's probably true.
Yeah, although some of them would probably been better than some of the people I played with, but another story for a different day. I want to do this issue.
Are you going to welcome people to the podcast?
Oh yeah, welcome to the podcast. You need to listen, and it's not just the name; it's an instruction. And I mean it.
Directive.
Because I think we cover topics that are on people's minds, but are often not talked about enough. Because there's a reason we do it on the podcast. For us to, churn out the content we do on the show, it's very news based. Mm-hmm. This is sort of a way to explore some. We did one on empathy, and we've done it on our All Politics Personal, and this one is sort of character based or individually based, because it's to me it's about the conduct, the words, actions, policies of the President of the United States. And my question is, so I'm going to ask you a lot of questions because you accused me of you asking me all the questions. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions in this podcast.
All right.
Kristin Brey, Steve Scaffidi, and you need to listen.
I'm glad we picked a topic that I have less opinions on, but let's go.
All right. So, as you know, Kristin, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump.
I know.
No, I often say this. I don't necessarily preface it, but I say it afterwards. I do want this country, this president, to succeed in the way that we all benefit. And that means, going back to a prior conversation, everybody benefits, not some people. But I wonder, and so people who will listen to the podcast maybe for the first time or don't know me or haven't listened to the show before, I call myself a conservative, fiscally very conservative. I say in the education sector, very conservative. Socially, there's some things like...
Socially, you're not that conservative.
Yeah. So more middle, I would say. Sometimes even lean a little left. So I think that's an honest appraisal of where I'm at. Mm-hmm. But if I look at my voting record for the last however many years that is, 97, 98% Republican. Mm-hmm. Now, sort of the change that's happened...
Would you count the times that you wrote in a candidate, if the candidate was Republican, that you were voting Republican?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's just a dislike of the person they picked.
Okay.
And that's mainly Donald Trump related, who's really the subject of this conversation.
Yeah.
My question is, I
wondering.
want to ask you first, because you're not a supporter of Donald Trump. You're not a Republican. You're not a conservative by any stretch. How would you define yourself?
As a collectivist.
Collectivist? Give me more than that.
I've talked about this before. I don't really like any of the terms. Like, I know what other people would call me, but like, I don't know, left.
Like liberal?
Left, liberal. I don't really identify as a Democrat. I like the term collectivist because I feel like I am a fan of most things that are, like I said on the show recently, it's like I would gladly give up a $500 tax refund if it meant childcare could be funded and like it would be more accessible and affordable for more people. Like there is my own like privilege and like status. I am willing to not have more of it in order for more people to do better. So those are the kind of policies that I would say I support.
Now, as I've said on the show, and I've told people when they've asked me, I have not voted for Donald Trump. I've written in people like Nikki Haley, who I have a lot of respect for, and her story.
What's she doing now?
It's a good question. I think she's mainly just doing speaking engagements, which is very lucrative.
Very lucrative.
Certainly making more than she would have made as president.
And AI can't do that. That might be a good... Because I think AI will come for radio hosts and podcast hosts before it comes for public speaking.
Yeah, I'm less worried about that than you are. But
well, I have a lot more life to live.
I'm a short timer. So, I mean, this is really a podcast about Donald Trump, but not Donald Trump now. It's like life after Donald Trump. So...
Do we mean after he's out of office or after he's dead?
No, after he's out of office. I'm not going to wish
maybe
death.
I'll be one and the same.
Well, maybe. But I'm not wishing or hoping for
No,
that.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, by the time he actually would relinquish power, it might take death's door.
Yeah, I mean, given what we know about the president and sort of how he does business, I think you might be right on that. I look at it from this perspective. There are things that this president is doing that I think are destructive to our democracy, and that's not a common conservative position, I don't think. Although I tell you what, anecdotally, people tell me all the time, I don't know what we're doing, and these are like strict conservatives who have voted for Republicans their whole life. And they've either sat it out or done what I've done, which is do write-ins, which we all understand that ain't getting nothing done. It's just our way of saying, I don't support this. And I like to say to my friend Bill McCoshen all the time, I don't have the stink of Trump on me because I never voted for him. But when you ask me, if you're asking me, what life after Trump leaves office is going to be like, I actually think we're going to rebound a little bit. Because the reaction to bad stuff is typically, we gotta address the bad. We gotta fix the bad stuff. So I actually have faith, and I'm optimistic that unless he totally tears it all down, which hopefully won't happen, destruction of our democracy, which is still a threat that people talk about for good reason. I'm actually hopeful that we will see sort of a rubber band effect where we come back and say, you know what, this is not what we should be doing as a country, and that whether that displays itself in how we treat people who don't generally look like the white population in this country, or our policies in areas like healthcare or education. We'll see how that shakes out, but I do expect us to come back.
What do you mean by come back? Like, give more specific examples.
Better leadership, smarter policy when it comes to everyone, not only your group. My biggest frustration with politics and biggest frustration with Donald Trump is he could care less about everyone other than the 77 million people that voted for him. We've seen that demonstrated every day. That's the reality. And I've seen people say this, well, this is what America wanted. Did they really want that? I don't think they did. And that's my frustration. Now, how that manifests, here's the challenge. It's hard to get people to run for office in the first place. It's more expensive than ever to get people to run for office because you got to be a rich person or a millionaire, or in some cases a billionaire. And the voices that get the attention right now are the most extreme voices. So when I ask you as a not conservative, not Republican, what is your feeling as soon as Donald Trump leaves office, whenever that is, for whatever reason, what is your view on how, whether we springboard back to a more common sense-based form of governance in our country, or do you think it sort of propels us to even more chaotic times? Where do you fall on that? That's a long pause.
Well, I mean, I don't. I'm like I said, I'm not in the prediction business. I've gotten a lot of things very wrong.
We all do.
But I would say my instinct is that once Donald Trump is not in the picture anymore, the Republican Party will be as lost as the Democratic Party is right now. Because I think I was just having this conversation as far as I feel like there's lots of factions that make up MAGA, and it's very hard to know what that movement actually wants, because there's a part of it that is like Christian nationalists, right, that want a more Christian state. They want the 10 Commandments in classrooms. They want more traditional women's roles. There's a lot of that, but that's not everyone, right? And I think there's a lot of people who got brought into MAGA who aren't necessarily super pious people. I think, if you think about this last round of all of the tech bros, and that's not just Elon Musk. Peter Thiel's name is less known than Elon Musk, but what's his face?
Bezos, Sam Altman, who are you talking about?
Andreessen, Mark Andreessen, like a whole bunch of them, right? And some of that is, the crypto bros and stuff like that. Like there was a lot of different factions of the coalition that ended up electing Donald Trump this last time. And I feel like there isn't a clear vision of like what. I asked this morning to one of our conservative friends. I was like, what does the country being on track look like? And beyond deporting people, I guess maybe being less involved in Ukraine and Gaza and Israel
more
and some of these wars, so more isolationist. But what I don't feel like I hear often is a real plan to attack like wealth inequality, which I think you can come back to being one of the like root causes of a lot of our problems in this country. Like there's 80% of the country's household income is less than $170,000 a year. And that seems like, I'm sure to a lot of people, that seems like a lot of money, because I think the median income is somewhere between 60 and 70,000, depending on which state you live in.
Yep.
But like, that's not a lot of money to live off of anymore.
No, not anymore.
and like when you look at
housing and food, right?
Housing,
Energy.
food, health, like healthcare. If you're not going to send your kids to public schools because public schools are failing, like there is like the cost of living is so high, and like there is not a lot being done to address that, because our politicians on both sides have sold out to corporations, and we have like dictated, or the Supreme Court has decided that corporations are people, and money is speech. And so like it is literally the United States of corporate America, in my view. And so it's like, anyways, I think the Republican Party will be lost, because no one can do what Trump does. Carrie Lake hasn't been able to do it. There's all these people, even when we were just talking about Joni Ernst and her attempt at a joke with her tooth fairy, right, everyone's going to die, social media video. Like, I feel like she was trying to do the thing that Trump does, and like no one does it like he does. And I don't know if the cruelty of what he does, and he's just joking, and he just says what he wants, like translates to another person that can create this like cult-like fascination with
what you just said. Let me scare you even more, because one of the people who could be worse than Donald Trump is Donald Trump Jr.
But I don't think he has the charisma. I don't think he has.
He's got the name.
He has I guess, but I think there is something about Donald Trump that has captured people, and I don't think any of his kids have it.
Well, we had a guest on who basically, I think, told us off mic or during a break that one of the reasons Donald Trump's president, because he promised to bust it up, and that's what people wanted to hear, especially in Wisconsin. Well, some people.
Well, and I think some people do want that. I mean, that's what that's what attracted people to Bernie. Like, there's the overlap of Bernie.
Obviously different ideology, but
but like the overlap, and that's why the revisionist history people are like, oh, Bernie probably could have beaten Trump in 2016, because there is a overlap between people, Joe Rogan being one of them. Right. Joe Rogan was a Bernie guy. And so there is so many people that how the country is working right now, it's not working for them. And I think it's the same thing where Democrats are like, I was just reading this as far as initial polling on like the abundance agenda, which was the Ezra Klein, Derek Thompson thing, which we still need to read that book, of like building stuff and lowering regulations and bureaucracy so that you can actually build and make more stuff. And like that message versus a populist message. And this polling said that a populist message among left-leaning voters was still more popular. So like there is like a wealth class message that there is a lot of people who are kind of like burn it all down.
One of the ways I think that
things could actually get a lot worse before they get better.
Well, that's always the case, and in whatever sort of.
Because what do we know? The last time the wealth inequality was this bad, then we had a Great Depression for over a decade, and it took us to going to a Second World War and a bunch of socialist programs to get to what they're now saying was when America was great.
Yeah, which again, stop saying that because it's not true. One of the ways I think that conservatives, Republicans, right-leaning voters could be impacted is if, and again, I'm biased because I wrote her in twice, Nikki Haley or someone of that gender, someone who's lived a different experience. She has the immigrant experience, South Asian, Indian. I think that could sort of, I don't know if the term's educate, but like reinform conservatives that there's other stories, but still in your whatever way you classify yourself, conservative. And I think that could be sort of a re-edification process for right-leaning people in this country. Because I actually think she was a good leader in South Carolina. I think she did a good job at the UN. Again, her policies in some ways aren't that much different than Trump, but she doesn't have the sort of mean-spiritedness, the cruelty that's sort of inherent in the Donald Trump messaging. And, by the way, his appeal to some of the voters that voted for him.
Here's a different question, as far as a bigger question than what is the Republican Party going to look like after Trump. Where do you think Wisconsin, the United States, our standing in the world will be? Like, do you feel like we're at the beginning of the transition to ceding the world power to be China instead of us?
Do we have that risk?
Do you think we're on the decline? Is what my ask is. Of being world power.
It's not even a question. Our standing in the world has suffered Now, I know that people are going to say, what are you talking about? We're considered the tough guy. We're rattling our saber. We're military stronger than ever. Yeah, maybe. But the respect among, because I know I travel internationally quite a bit. Respect is not there between just citizens of other places. And I certainly know it's not there between the elected leaders of other places, because I see how they act when they're, dragged in front of the dog and pony show that happens in the Oval Office, the gilded Oval Office now, which looks, as I said on the show the other day, like a whorehouse in New Orleans in the 1920s. Like, how much gold can you jam into that damn room? But that sort of mistreatment of leaders gets back home to those people, and they go, wait a second, we used to love the country, of the United States. We don't like it anymore. And probably even more importantly than that, the dream, I just saw a show of all things about a chef who came from Italy to the United States to experience the American dream. And what he realized is his American dream could be lived in Italy without all the bullshit that happens here.
What show is that?
That was Stanley Tucci's new show.
Oh, he interviewed someone. He goes,
Yes.
"Yeah, I tried, and then I came back."
What more testimony do you need on that?
I dated someone who was like, my last boyfriend before I met Mike was French, and he grew up in the south of France, where it's like beautiful, and like there is, and he'll be the first one, like there is less opportunity, but there's also just so much more bullshit here. And he moved back to France.
Yeah.
And there is something as far as there's a quality of life that certain European countries can offer. And like the amount of money that you can make is less, like the GDP is less.
Cost of living is less in
the
those
cost of
places.
living is less. The rat race is less. But I just mean as far as like, as we are now banning 12 countries with restrictions on an additional 7 from even coming beyond like the athletes for the Olympics and the World Cup, as we are threatening to not, to be way more invasive in our vetting for student visas for international students who want to study here, as we isolate from our traditional allies, like, as we pull USAID out of all these countries as far as like soft power of as they refer to, and like the influence now that China will be able to come in and be the good guy in different countries. Like, is the policies that this administration is setting up and the funding that they're pulling setting us up to be the beginning of the downfall of us as a world power for all of the different things that makes the country actually really great, and not acknowledging that those are the things that make the country really great?
Yes, and the answer is yes, that could happen. But how you change that is by reversing course, and I think that's the optimistic piece of this story for me. Is I think we have opportunity there, and whether it's a new dynamic individual who sort of takes the mantle from Trump, if that's the right term, and does something different with it and says, hold on a second. There are conservative ways to look at things that are empathetic, that are fair, that are more common sense, logic based, versus just being cruel to people because you don't like them or you don't like the way they look or pray or whatever. I think that's my hope. But I can guarantee when this podcast publishes, we're going to get comments like, well, these two are just suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. And first of all, if you say that to me, I disregard your comment, because you're one being anti-intellectual and just being stupid. Because I've praised the president on things that he's done that I like. So stop with that, because it's empty, lazy, as I said, not intellectually, doesn't carry any weight with me at all. I can not like a person, but still want the country that person leads to be successful. I don't want that individual, in this case Donald Trump, dragging the rest of us down because they choose to make this about revenge and cruelty and money. That's not a good recipe for success. I understand people with wealth have a lot of opportunity that other people don't have. It doesn't give you the right to run roughshod over everyone and treat them like they're second-class citizens, which is what can happen and may be happening as we speak. It's not a great time for me. I do believe in conservative principles. I do believe that fiscal responsibility can be the answer, by the way, to a lot of the other things that we're talking about. Because if you don't waste money, if you are efficient, you'll have more money for healthcare and more money for science, which I know is a bad word now among some conservatives. So there are arguments to be made there, but some conservative has to make that argument. And whether that's a woman who can make it or some shining star that we don't even know, I don't know, but I'm optimistic about it.
Do you think it'll get back to believing in like a public good?
I hope so.
'Cause that's really what I feel like we've lost sight of what is a public good and like why it's important to invest dollars for things that don't make money, but are good for everyone and enhance society.
Somebody asked me this question the other day, and it was revolving. I think it was around 9/11 and how good the country felt. But I said to I appreciate that because I remember all that stuff. I was old enough to remember all that. But I want that.
You mean like in the aftermath?
Yeah,
of like
the
how
aftermath.
people came together and stuff. Yeah, but then even that talks about the COVID's like the things of like the initial patriotism and everything. But then we got the Patriot Act, and we got all the stuff that happened as far as our division, and we went to 2 wars that didn't mean anything.
That was my point. That I was going to make. It's got to be real, not based on a military expansion. But, demonstrated how we treat each other, how we work as a country with the rest of the world. You can be bitching about globalism all you want. That ship has sailed. We can talk to someone. I can talk to Australia right now if I want in about 2 seconds. That ship has sailed. We are connected, whether you like it or not. So pretend we're not is a failure by anybody who says things. We're not going to be isolationists because we cannot possibly do that anymore. Anybody in this country right now can go see what's happening in almost any place, maybe other than China, because they're pretty restricted. But almost any other place, you can see live right now on their newscasts, in their news stories, on their social media, what's happening in the world.
Google Street View?
Google Street View? When's the last time? I looked at my Google Street View yesterday. It's like 2 cars ago. When did they update that thing?
I don't know. Mine is pretty out of date, too.
Yeah, I had bushes I don't have anymore. See, I wanted to bring this up because I think this is forward thinking. And I think it's a time, we're only, first 6 months of the Trump administration? Not even? There's 3.5 more years of this.
Well, the reason why I didn't want to do this, and if we want to put this in at the end of the podcast, is because I don't know. Are you a Jon Stewart fan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Creative talent.
Like he is my mecca when it comes to
Right.
what I would ever strive to be able to do. Is
Also someone who understands the common good.
So smart, so funny, and just the smartest takes on a lot of stuff. His post-election night monologue was basically, and I don't know how they cut this as quickly as they did, was how the pundits post-election always get it wrong. And literally he went back to he did it after Bush beat Kerry, then when Obama beat McCain, and then when Obama won again against Romney, and then when Trump won. And so and he went through all of these elections and what the pundits on Fox and CNN and everyone who gets paid to talk about this got on and what the losing party needed to do. And every single time they were wrong as far as what happened between Romney and Trump and what happened between Trump and Biden and like this pontification. And so that's why at first I was like, I don't know what I'm going to say. Like, I can't predict what the bellwethers are of where the country is going and what the Republican Party or even the Democrat Party is going to do by next year in the 2026.
Right. Nobody can predict the future, but what you just brought up, but all those pundits being wrong, because to be honest, and I know some of these people, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
They just get paid to talk. It's like you and I. Sometimes
there's
times when we just gotta fill airtime, right?
Just wing it, Kristin. Just wing it. All right. I don't know if we solved any world problems, but I thought it was a conversation we needed to have because I actually like to benchmark where we're going based on a conversation today. So we'll see how this shakes out. You'll probably be talking about that election next time. I probably won't, but I'm still going to be.
What, 2026?
2028.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Unless you invite me on because I'm a talented pundit.
Unless you have the energy.
I doubt that's going to happen. She's Kristin Brey. How do they find you?
KBREY at goodkarmabrands.com.
And Steve.Scaffidi, SCAFFIDI at WTMJ.com. I always enjoy the podcast. I always learn something, which is like the best thing I can say about whether it's the show we do, which, by the way, Monday through Friday, 10 to 12 on 620 WTMJ, or the podcast available everywhere. Point taken. I love doing the show. I've done a lot of shows over the years, but this one I really enjoy.
Would you say it's your favorite?
I would say it's my favorite because I brought you to radio.
Hey!
As your family always reminds me, which I'm very proud of. Kristin Brey, Steve Scaffidi. You need to listen, and I'm not kidding. This, I believe, is episode 12.
It is.
Lucky number 12. Actually, lucky number 13. What's that
coming next? We'll have to do something superstitious.
Or
scary. But like, review, share with your friends, and we'll see you next time.
Ciao.